I'm Polly Warren and welcome to the Positive Perimenopause podcast. This is the place for some positive inspiration to help you through the rollercoaster ride of perimenopause. I truly believe that with the right support, knowledge and wellness tools, you can feel your best yet, because I'm learning this life phase can be a truly exciting and often pivotal time of life. With every episode, my mission is to support and empower you to own your menopause, because it's time to start taking care of the most important person, and yes, that's you. So thank you for being here and sharing your time with me. Now let's dive in. Hello and welcome back to the podcast. How are you doing? I hope you've had a good week. Last week, my eldest finished his A-levels and left school forever. I honestly cannot believe it. He is on to the next exciting chapter of his life. And actually, as I was sitting in his leavers ceremony, I couldn't help but reflect on what it was like when I was 18 years old. My God, it seems such a lifetime ago. But how different I was to who I am now when I was 18. And obviously that's completely normal. But it really made me realize that we have, as we go through life, so many different chapters. And as Felix is just ending this chapter of his life, of his school days, and moving on to the next chapter, we also, as perimenopausal women, are closing the chapter of our life, of our fertile years, of all that's gone before, and starting a brand new chapter into what's next. And just like Felix, for many of us, that can feel quite scary. We're going into the unknown. We don't really know what to expect. But actually, it too is an opportunity for growth, for new experiences. And I think for too long, we've obviously kind of felt, because of the societal narrative about aging, that it's something which isn't a very positive. But it's time for that to change. It's time for us to embrace this opportunity to really drop all of those masks we might have been wearing throughout our lives. I know that I had many. I constantly was moulding into who I thought I ought to be. And actually now, as I get older, I realize I just want to be me, and I want to peel off those layers of the onion and just show up as me. And you can too. And part of that is really discovering who you are at your core and rediscovering your inner power and strength. And that is exactly what my guest this week has done. And that is the brilliant Karen Arthur. Karen is a fashion designer. She's a menopause diversity campaigner, and she's host of the groundbreaking podcast, Menopause Whilst Black. She also appeared in the Channel 4 documentary here in the UK about menopause with Davina McCall. She's also the inspiration behind Wear You're Happy, because she believes passionately in the power of clothing and accessories to enhance your mood and lift your spirits. I absolutely loved talking to Karen, and actually had so many other questions I wanted to ask her, but we ran out of time. Conversations like this are really important because the experience of menopause is universal, regardless of ethnicity, yet symptoms and risk factors can differ for women of different backgrounds. So, for example, Black women experience menopause up to 2 years earlier than white women and can suffer symptoms, especially things like hot flashes, for longer. Black women are also less likely to receive hormone replacement therapy to help ease their symptoms. So it is really important to have these conversations. If you haven't listened to Karen's podcast, Menopause Whilst Black, I really encourage you to have a listen. It's a brilliant podcast. And as Karen pointed out to me during this conversation, her podcast is for everyone, regardless of your colour, because it is so important that we all have an awareness of the experiences of Black women, of Asian women, of everybody's experience. Because as Karen says, everybody should listen to everybody, because the more voices we hear, the less alone we feel. So, without further ado, please welcome the absolutely wonderful and vibrant Karen Arthur. So I have the absolutely gorgeous Karen Arthur here this morning, looking incredibly summery and sunny and smiley. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here with me today, Karen. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. No, my pleasure too. Thank you for having me.
So, Karen, I thought a really nice place to start was if you could just tell us all a little bit more about you. So, where did you grow up? How was your childhood? Just, yeah, so we can learn a little bit more about the Karen Arthur.
First of all, I'm a 61-year-old Black British human, and I was born in London, but my parents moved to Banbury in Oxfordshire when I was about 4. So I was brought up in Banbury, which is a small market town, bang smack in the middle of England. Population of about 30,000. There weren't many people who looked like us. I loved my childhood. I really enjoyed school. I was one of those kids who was quite academic, but also very creative as well. And so, I don't know, I had a ball. I remember the long, hot summers, when summer holidays seemed to be really, really long. So I was brought up there, and then I left when I was 18. I went to Leicester Poly to study performing arts. I was a dance specialist, loved it there. And then I did a bit of, part-time dance teaching after that, but I moved to London and started to teach dance full-time in secondary schools. And I did that for almost 2 decades. And then I moved across to the pastoral side. So I became a head of year in a mixed secondary school, then a head of coordinator of year, they called it, in a secondary girls. And then I ended up as the head of house in a very large boys' school in Southeast London, which is where I brought my girls up in Southeast London. I've got a couple of girls who are grown women now, and a grandson who's 3.5.
Wow, my
Yeah,
goodness.
and the last chapter of that, I suppose, was I left teaching in 2015. I became very unwell and linked to my menopause journey as well. And then I became a fashion designer. That sounds like I made that sound really easy. I'd been
Yeah.
sewing for 40 years. My mother taught me to sew when I was 15. And looked at, I wanted to I wanted to curate my life, the rest of the life that I had left, um, doing stuff that I love. And I really love fabric. I love sewing. I love being creative. And I loved the connection that making bespoke clothing for women and the conversations we would have about our bodies and all our little hang-ups and how we wanted to feel um, became very important to me. So I ran that business for almost 6 years, 5 or 6 years. And then I started to crave the sea. Lockdown happened. I guess subliminally, I actually spent most of the 2 years on Rightmove Barbados looking at houses and villas in Barbados. My parents are Bayesian. I have Bayesian heritage. I am there quite as often as I can be, at least once a year. Now. And so I was looking there, and then I thought, well, I'm not ready to leave England yet. My family's here. But I was craving the sea. The feeling wouldn't go away. And I don't know, I ended up in Hastings. I mean, it's I suppose I believe that when you're doing the thing that you're supposed to do, whatever that might be, you can call it following your path, you can call it following your purpose, you can call it what you like. Um, Ease happens. It feels like all these people turned up in my life that pointed me towards Hastings. I'd never been before. I interviewed, how it turned out, I interviewed someone on my podcast, Lorna Hamilton Brown, who's an incredible craftivist. She's a specialism is knitting. And she lived in Hastings. So I asked her, are there any black folks down there? Is it diverse? Can I, what's it like? And then I put my house on the market like this January 2022. Put my house on the market. And then by September, I was in Hastings, St Leonard's, and I've literally exchanged on. I bought somewhere yesterday, so I feel at peace. There is some research around menopausal women craving sea and water, craving water, as in being near water and space. I don't know how true that is, but my view is incredible. It's very difficult to feel sad looking at the sea, listening to the sound of the ocean waves. And I feel incredibly blessed and lucky and grateful that I've been able to make this part of my daily life. So, yeah. I mean, I've missed a load of stuff out, but I'm sure that'll come out in a wash.
Yeah. Oh, Karen, I love all of that. I love all of that. And it does sound like you've landed in being in a place where you are just you. You are here, that you are happy, and you can see that. And I agree with you about the sea. My goodness, I just love living by the sea. It gives you that feeling of freedom, of space, of, I don't know. It's
the space. It's the space. I loved London for a long time. I was there for 36 years. Vibrant. I brought my kids up there. My kids are Londoners, and a lot of my friends live there. But I can go in and come out again. What I love about being here is you can see buildings, but at some point you just see sea and sky. You go to the edge of the earth, in a sense, the edge of the country. And it just calms your central nervous system.
Yeah.
You get to exhale. And I encourage anybody, I'm not telling everybody to move, but certainly if you have the opportunity to just go to the seaside and just sit, and I think it's powerful. And I think we decide that it's outside our reach, especially, I'm going to say especially Black folks, especially people of colour. We will congregate where we feel most comfortable, and we often feel comfortable around our own, and I understand that. But these are often cities. But the power of nature should be for everybody. And so I feel that my move certainly worked for me. My kids are thrilled. My grandson loves it. He now has two grandmas who both live by the sea.
Oh, lucky
his mother
him.
lives up along the way. His grandmother, lives along the way. And I just think more of this, please, more nature. If you can get to a park, if you can get to green space. We recognise how important that was during lockdown, during the pandemic, when actually being able to go and sit in a green space, listening to nature, how much louder the birds were because there weren't any cars around, I've been able to do it in a big way, but I think we can all access nature in a smaller way, even if it's a window box or plants in your home, something that can just, and I think that helps with our journey in terms of menopause. I think it helps in terms of our mental well-being. There's a lot of wins there.
Oh, yes.
And we're not fighting tigers and bears and all of that.
No, exactly. I mean, we all know that it's good for us, but actually it's actually making the effort to go and put yourself in it. Or as you say, just have some plants in your house, or a really lovely window box on your window can just really brighten up your day and feel like you are with nature, because we were born in nature initially, and we haven't kind of evolved yet to live in this very, very man-made, built-up environment. It does affect our nervous system. So yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I'm the kiss of death to plants.
Oh God, me too.
I'm not good with houseplants. So,
me too. I keep persevering, but I get through them quite quickly. So Karen, I just want to go back to something you said just now in your conversation. There was a period of time where you said from teaching where you became very ill. And I know that this was associated with your own menopause journey. So I wonder if you could kind of talk us through that. How did it show up for you? And where did it take you? How low? I know you did reach some low point. How low did it get you? And was there a particular moment where you were like, right, this is just something I've got to just sort out? a very quick break to ask you to hit the follow or subscribe button if you haven't already. And if you're enjoying this episode, I'd be super grateful if you could hit those stars and rate it too. Thank you.
I think we spend a lot of our time doing, and we focus a lot of our energies on our kids or our partner or that kind of thing. So for me personally, all of my information and knowledge and my expertise around menopause and perimenopause is all in retrospect. Had I known what I know now, none of this would have happened, but we wouldn't be having a conversation. So it was 2014 autumn. My girls both went off to uni. My youngest went for the first time. My daughter went back after a sabbatical. It's getting darker. It's getting colder. My boiler broke. I can't focus on the kids because they're not there anymore. And it's not like I was with them all the time. It's just that they were in the house. So I was caring for them in a sense, even though they had their own lives. So I was going to work and coming home, doing more work and going to bed, getting up and doing it all over again. That's basically what was happening. I think I had a really busy period. I did a fashion show in 2000 September, mid-September. And I was literally burning the candles at both ends, going to work, coming home, sewing, getting the collection ready, doing that kind of thing. And then we had the catwalk show, and it was amazing and exciting. And then it was done. And then it was just work and home. I'm not in a relationship. And my boiler broke, and I know I was ill. Now I realise, because had my girls been home, I would have fixed it in a heartbeat. But I just didn't consider myself worthy of heat. So we're getting into October now. We're getting to know, and I was forgetting things. That's the first thing. Two things I noticed. I was forgetting things. I was having hot flushes, but I didn't, for some reason, even though that's one of the major symptoms of menopause that people report about, I put that at the back of my head. I was concerned because I was forgetting to go to meetings. I was forgetting about quite important things to do with my job. And I was really scared that someone would find out and I would get the sack. And if I got the sack, I wouldn't be able to pay my mortgage. I wouldn't be able to, all those stuff. So I decided I didn't have the money to fix the boiler. I kind of soldiered on my own. And as we all know, that kind of stuff bites you in the bum. And there was one particular crucial moment when I was in another meeting, and I'd taken my laptop. I was half listening to the meeting, half doing some work, working out in my head. I was going to say half again, but I wasn't a maths teacher. Those fractions don't add up, do they? I was also working out in my head when the meeting would end and how long I could stay in my office to do some more work and how much work I'd have to take home. So I was doing all of this, and the fire alarm went. And you do that thing where you look at each other and you're like, oh, do we have to go out? Do we, And it turned out we had to go out. And everybody left their stuff. I packed up everything. Everybody went downstairs to the assembly point. I went up to my office, put my clothes on, my hat, my coat, grabbed got my laptop, as I said, stuffed my bag with work and walked down the stairs past everybody and went home. And I got into my living room, opened up my laptop. I may have had a fish finger sandwich. I may have had the wherewithal to think, what can I make that's quick? I'm a big fan of a fish finger sandwich, guys.
Me too.
Mayonnaise, seeded bread.
Yum.
That's life. So I sit there, I do more work. The TV's on, but it's on mute. So it gets darker, and you've just got the light of my laptop and the TV. And it gets to about 8 o'clock, and I'm exhausted. And I think, oh, I just want to go to bed. Remember, I'm freezing because I'm living in one room because I've got no heating. So I'm wrapped up warm. I mean, I'm laughing now, but it's tragic. And I looked at the clock and realised it was 8 o'clock, and I thought it's too early to go to bed. And if I go to bed now, it'll bring the morning closer, quicker, and I'll have to get up and do it all over again. And I burst into tears. And I kept crying, and I kept sobbing. And after about 20 minutes, I thought, this isn't normal. And I was Googling, I was on the NHS website and I was Googling symptoms of depression and ticking every fucking, excuse me, I'm sorry.
All right, swear away.
Cut that out. Ticking
Swearing
every box,
goes.
right? And I was thinking, I need help. I remember getting my phone out and scrolling past my sister, my mum, my daughters. One, because they weren't near me, and two, because I didn't want to worry them too much. I called my friend Carolyn, her landline. Let me tell you, Carolyn never picks up her phone, you know. It's usually her husband or her kids. And on that occasion, she picked up the phone. And I'm making no sense. You know, the ugly crying. And she just said, hold tight, I'm coming. And she turned up on the doorstep. And we sat and we talked. And she said, go to the doctors. And I'm going, it's all right, I just need a day off. Even then, she's recognising that I need help. And I cannot fathom a world where I could take time off, because any teachers listening to this will know, and not just teachers, but you defer your illness. So you go, you're sneezing, schools are germ fests full of kids who've been sent in because they're trying to get their 100% attainment and they're still ill. You've got teachers who are soldiering on and they're also ill. And those germs just keep going around and round and round. And also, if you take time off, then you've got to create cover. You've got to create, it's long. I couldn't fathom that world. So often we go, you look at your diary and you go, I'll be ill next week on Wednesday because I haven't got that many meetings, which is ridiculous.
I get it. I was a primary school teacher for 20 years. I get it.
Right.
Absolutely.
And then you get to Wednesday, and you're okay. So you go in again and you're never at 100%, you know. So I couldn't imagine a world where I could say, you know, I don't have a broken leg. Nothing's bleeding, you know, so how can I take time? Anyway, she persuaded me that that was the best thing to do. So I went to the doctors the next day. She called me or messaged me to make sure I'd done it, made the appointment. I went and the doctor signed me off for a week, I remember. And I felt guilty I felt guilty calling into school to tell them. I felt guilty the whole time I was off, which is a surefire sign that you're not well. And it extended to 2 weeks. And it extended to 4 weeks. And I ended up having the whole of the half term off up to Christmas. And then I decided to manage myself. That's enough time off. Never had that amount of time off work, ever. And I feel a little bit better, but I'm constantly thinking about work. So I went back in January and I phased myself in. But you can't be part-time unless, you can do 3 days or 2 days, but you can't go in and do 4 hours because that's not how it works, you know. And so the 23rd of January 2015 was my last day officially. Not officially, my last day. I walked out and I didn't go back. My lovely deputy at the time, Nadine, came to see me. She'd seen me teaching and she knew that it wasn't me. And she said, you need more time off. And that's when I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression. And the doctor offered me, so I went to the doctors and I had a list of things because doctors have 10 minutes. So I thought, I need to do the checkbox. And at the bottom of that was menopause. So I hurt myself falling down and I was having pains in my arms and all down my side. That's awful for everybody, but terrible for me as a dancer, who's always been someone who prided myself on my fitness and all that kind of thing. So that wasn't working for me. So I told the doctor that and I said, I'll just get myself a course of massages. Just me telling me the doctor what I'm going to do. I had tingly legs and I had hot flushes. We talked about anxiety and depression. We talked about menopause. The doctor offered me antidepressants. And I said, yeah, well, let's not do that. my mother's very holistic, always been into aromatherapy, was into that in the 70s when it wasn't a thing. So I always try and do the most natural thing first. You know, if I've got a headache, I'll drink water or eat or sleep or something. So I said, let me try something else. I'm not averse to pills, but let me try that. And then if if it doesn't work, I'll come back to you. And then I took myself away to Eastbourne, as it goes. I literally stuck a pin in them. I went to the sea and I booked an Airbnb and I told the guy who owned it that I wasn't well and I needed just to tap out. Absolutely amazing. And I went for long walks. So it's February now. It's freezing. It's sea, so it's even more freezing. So I walks on the South Downs. And Beachy Head is up there. And I remember standing there. There's lots of signs, Samaritan signs as well. And standing there, and I kind of teetered over not that I wasn't going to do anything, but I'd been having these, I'm going to say, suicidal ideations. I hadn't been thinking about, I would do it this way, but I had been I'd got all my affairs in order. I knew what all my passwords were. I'd written them all down. I thought, well, if I'm not here, then my kids will be taken care of because they'll have the house. All this kind of stuff. Not great. And it's not great to remember as well, but I think it's important to understand that I'm nowhere near that now. So I teeter on the edge and I look at the rocks below and I'm thinking, fucking hell, who does that? You must be desperate. You must. And I felt for all these people who had jumped off the edge, But for me, I was like, nah, I'm not doing that. I want to be here. And I made the decision then and there. And there's a pub across the way. I think it's the last pub. It's probably called The Last Drink or something. And I walked across there and I ordered myself a hot chocolate with a shot of rum and a bowl of chips. Got my journal out and I wrote, I want to be here and all the things I wanted to do. And I left teaching. I never thought I'd leave teaching, I thought I'd teach forever and sew on the side and wait for my grandkids and retire. But it never occurred to me. And I'd always had a salary. So it was really, really, really scary. But I thought teaching was the problem. I still didn't make the connection between that and menopause. No one was talking about the connection between mental well-being and menopause. No one. So I just thought, it's me. And menopause is just something else. And I thought that leaving teaching would make me better. And it absolutely did not. Far from it.
Yeah. Gosh.
I haven't let you get a word in edgeways, have I?
It's all right. No, God, honestly, I was tears in my eyes then. I mean, thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm so glad that you made the decision to stay and not to do anything drastic, because it's just so freaking awful that anybody should go to those lengths because of menopause, midlife, and it's not being recognised. Sorry, that's the dog making that noise.
I know, I can
shaking, scratching.
I was smiling at.
And still at this point, it's quite amazing that you still didn't know. You still hadn't joined up the dots that it was menopause. So when did that happen? When did you suddenly realise? Well, yeah.
We're talking 2015, 2016.
Yes.
I have always been quite honest about my age, because there's that whole thing about you get older, so you don't tell anyone how old you are. I don't have an issue with that. So I was honest about my journey. I was honest about my mental well-being. A few things. I chucked everything at getting better. I got very quiet. I learned to mindful meditation, which my brother, who's a Buddhist, suggested. I read half of the book by John Kabat-Zinn called Full Catastrophe Living. I say half because look at that book. It's huge. It's a doorstop. So I did that. I deepened my stretch practice, my yoga practice. I wouldn't say I'm a yoga aficionado per se. I don't know all the words, the names, but I stretch. I stretch every day. That's a non-negotiable. And I got very quiet also because I didn't want to see people. I screened calls. I stayed under my duvet and But what also happened, so I leave teaching, I think I'm going to get better. All that does is give space for me to get worse in a sense, or go deeper into my illness before I can come out again. And my aunt passed away. My aunt went into hospital, my aunt Monica went into hospital, came out, went in, stayed, and passed. And that shook me. For the first 2 weeks, I was the executor of her will. So for the first 2 weeks, in a sense, it was, I don't want to say enjoyed because that's the wrong word, but having something to focus on stopped me from thinking about me. Yeah. So I spent 2 weeks organising the funeral, and that's a lot. But then after that, I'm sorting out her home and sorting out her will. And that takes quite a few months. So it's not until sort of autumn 2016 that I start to recognise that there might be a connection between what's going in. So a few things that happened. I started to wear, I kept 2 items of clothing that my aunt had. One was a pleated C&A chiffon skirt number, and one was a maxi St. Michael A-line skirt, which I still have. And when I felt like I missed her, and I missed her a lot, I was quite surprised by how much I missed her, because I didn't see her that much. I would put those clothes on. And I started to consciously put on clothes that made me feel good, and I started to call that Wear You're Happy. I talked about it on Twitter when Twitter was, different. What the hellhole it is now. And I hashtagged it Wear You're Happy. And then Instagram came along, and the rest is history in that sense. I feel really passionately and strongly about the positive effects that fashion can have on lifting your mood. And I feel that we don't do it enough. Now a lot of more people get it. But what also happened is I stopped caring what people thought about what I wore. So often I looked a bit bonkers. It looked like things didn't go. I'm a big fan of bright colour, but it's not just colour. It's about texture. It's about memory. It's about vintage clothing. It's a sustainable way, actually, of wearing clothes. And it's about not caring what other people think, because women dress for our partners, our mates, the lady in the office who always looks more stylish than me, the gram. We dress for other people. And I think it's really important that we learn to dress for ourselves. And as I did that, I started to heal. So it was a combination of choosing myself for the first time ever in my life, not thinking about putting other people first, setting boundaries, choosing not to see people. And then as I started to become more sociable, choosing who I shared space with, people who left me feeling good, not people who drained me. You don't notice these things. And I urge people to pay attention to how they feel after they've come off the phone to someone that who's been, we place a lot of value in the longevity, how do you say it, of friendships, but we don't look at the quality of them. And then I started to talk to other people. I started to gather my friends and talk about menopause. I thought, well, if I'm menopausal, that means you're going to be menopausal. So let's have a chat. So I did that around my kitchen table. I'm a teacher, so I did a worksheet.
Love it.
I'm not even joking. And I gave them pens. I know, I can't help myself. And I asked them 2 questions. What's the best thing about getting older? What's the worst thing? And that talking and sharing, this is what I urge anybody going through menopause, whatever your demographic, however old you are, whatever your background, don't keep it to yourself, because me talking and showing up for people who look like me, as well as older women, has meant that my journey to good mental well-being and my menopause journey. People don't like the phrase menopause journey because it's overused, isn't it? But I can't think of another one. I can't think of another phrase. So we're going with that.
Yeah, go with that.
Has been much more nourishing and easeful because I know myself. I know my body. It's not just about what you eat and all the exercise you do. It's about who you spend time with.
I mean, listening to you talk, Karen, it just really highlights the fact that so many of us flourish and into the people who we truly are. And we realize that we spent so much of our lives up to this point just
So
doing the
much.
things because we've just fallen into them, and we feel we ought to, we're pleasing everybody else. And actually, I mean, I know the same case was for me, but I know for many others, we can almost see through
Mm.
that sort of lowering estrogen levels, what is truly there and what is. And it gives us that courage and confidence to really be who we are. And don't get me wrong, it takes a real process.
Well, I was going to
And I
say
think,
it's also hard.
yeah, exactly. So, I think it takes a lot of facing what is there. A lot of stuff, perhaps from the past, kind of really comes up front. So you're facing it. You can't suppress it anymore. And I think we're also good at suppressing it, pushing it down, ignoring it. When we're going through menopause, through perimenopause, suddenly it's like, oh my God, I can't push it down anymore. It's there. I've got to deal with it. And only when you deal with it, then it can actually create more space in order to be able to move forward into the next bit, into what's next. I mean, did you find that big stuff started to appear?
Big stuff, huge. Well, you know, I think that stuff is hard. Life is hard. But we have to do uncomfortable things to, what is it? The magic happens outside your comfort zone, or the other way around. I didn't recognize myself as being brave or a risk taker, but actually that's exactly what I've done. Because I call it the great unlearning. If you think about it, I'm 61 now. I spent a good 52 years on the planet learning how to be a good Black woman, teacher, mother, partner at some point, etc., daughter, etc. So it's about, and so then I've spent the last 10 years unpicking that, unlearning that, stepping away from that. And now and it does get easier. For anybody who's listening, I know we're maybe making it sound quite easy. It's not easy.
Right.
I did a lot of journaling. I did a lot of self-introspection, and it's a daily practice. I don't wake up every day feeling great. In fact, I've had a couple of days where I felt pretty shit, actually. But I recognize that the difference is, I know it's not going to last forever. I'm not depressed anymore. My mental well-being, like everybody else, undulates, you know. But when I have a day where I'm like, I'm in this beautiful place with a beautiful view, the sun shining, and I feel like shit, I'm not going to make myself feel guilty for that as well. I'm going to go, okay, what can I do that will nourish me?
Yeah.
Because tomorrow I won't feel this way. So I might, in this case, go and sit by the sea. I might have a nourishing meal rather than reach for the crisps and chocolate, which I also reach for because they're great. Don't get me wrong. I might call my mum, who's at a stage where our relationship has flipped. So she doesn't listen to anything I say. So she just makes me laugh. Do you know what I mean? Now I'm over my mum, I want my mum to nurture me. I want my mum to look after me. She's 83. It's my job now to look after her. So I call her and I guarantee, first of all, she's delighted to hear from me. And secondly, she chats, just do sometimes. And it's hilarious, and we make each other laugh. So it's been a slow process, and I didn't notice it happening. I have friends who are having a hard time. I know I get DMs from women who are having a hard time. I'm like, well, how long did it take? I didn't even notice. Do you know, I'm a big believer in affirmation, that I am powerful, I am worthy, I am this. And I remember my old house, I had a small garden but a big tree at the end of it. And I used to either look at it from the kitchen window or go down and stand in front of it and tell it all these things. I am worthy. I didn't believe a word of it, Polly, not a word. So I'd say all these things. I am powerful. I am, vibrant. I am all this kind of stuff. And a year later, I felt different. I was like, oh, I am powerful. I am worthy. I can't, of course, now I'm talking to you, I can't think of all the words. But I have a whole thing.
Yeah.
If I didn't say it out loud, I had some of them written. I'd put them on my fridge or on my mirror. My point is that how we speak to ourselves, we forget how powerful that is. And often we are horrible to ourselves. We tell ourselves that we look like rubbish, that we're fat, that we are stupid. And sometimes that comes out. I was silly for buying that. No, you're not. We have to speak to ourselves kindly because it helps us to sit up, to stand tall, to walk, with our head held high. And I didn't realise. I felt silly doing it. I thought, God, I hope the neighbours aren't watching. They must think I'm a bit mad. Well, I am. But these things work.
They do work. There are so many of these tools out there, and it's about finding the thing that works for you, because there are things which will work for you. Don't give up on them. So it might work if it's, but actually maybe you'll find something which is different. It might be, I don't know, cold water plunging might be your thing, or it might be whatever it is. But it's about finding your thing, experimenting, and making,
and having patience.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, I chucked this time. I had nothing but time. Everybody else was working. I did, I get that, but actually we are so used to things working like that.
Yeah.
We want a quick fix, which is why we say, how long did it take? Well, I don't know. It might take months for you. We have to be patient. It's like trying supplements. You try trial supplements. What do they last? A month, 2 weeks? That's not long enough to know if it works or not.
So ongoing.
And it's same with HRT.
Yeah.
I take HRT now. I resisted for a while. Resisted, is that the right word? I just thought I didn't need it. And then I did a little bit more research around how I might be able to benefit. I take a very low dosage, but it works for me. But it took a year to get the dosage right. Things change, don't they? And your body, it's like, what the hell's going on here? So I feel like with anything, you're absolutely right. Some people can't get into journaling. I love it. Some people don't like yoga. I'm not a big fan of yoga classes per se. Don't shoot me. But I do believe we should stretch, because if we don't, when we drop our pen on the floor, it's going to stay there. We won't be able to pick it up.
Yeah, it's so true. God, I've been stretching every day. Well, since my early 40s, when I was really in the depths of menopause, it was the one thing which got me moving, and I had to stretch. Yeah, so that was
find what works. For you.
Exactly.
And try different things. Give yourself a few months. Doesn't work, don't beat yourself up about it.
Yeah.
Go on to something else. Me personally, I'll try anything, mate. Even the cold water plunging or the swimming in the sea, I never thought I'd get in that sea. I mean, I'm used to the Caribbean. What am I getting in there for?
I know, God.
But actually, the feeling afterwards, that exhilaration, is you can't beat it. You can't beat it.
So, Karen, I can't not talk to you on this podcast about your podcast.
Oh, yeah. Forgot about that.
I know. I was like, oh my gosh, we've got to talk about your amazing podcast. So I've actually been listening to your podcast, Menopause Whilst Black. And although I'm a white woman, I have thoroughly been enjoying it. I love your honest conversations. I love your warmth, your compassion. But you're really very good at this. It's a really very good podcast. Why did you start this podcast?
I need you to know that I had no idea or inkling to become a podcaster. That was not a thing.
Snap.
I was happy. I was happily being a designer, making clothes. I was enjoying it. I was doing my creative thing, I will also add, I just want to take you back, because you said about being a white woman listening to Menopause Black, and it's interesting. Whilst Black podcast. It's interesting that we wouldn't do that the other way around, would we? It wouldn't occur to me to say I'm a black one, but I listen to your podcast.
No.
Because do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I invite people to think about it, because I've had other people say that to me. Oh, well, I'm white. Can I listen? Well, first of all, I don't own the airwaves. Secondly, of course you can. These are humans talking about their menopausal experience who happen to be black, which is kind of what my premise is. I am, a menopausal woman who was also a black woman. And I started, okay, so let me go back. 2020, my clients are on hold. Do you remember when we thought we were going into lockdown for 2 weeks? Do you remember that, guys? So I thought my clients are on hold. Anybody who sewed was making masks. And actually making masks and selling them saved my business because it meant that I could do something from my kitchen table that would distract me from whatever was going on in the outside world, but also I would be able to pay my bills and my mortgage and stuff like that. And then we get to May, and two things happened end of May, and we all know them. One was Amy Cooper weaponizing her tears against Christian Cooper, who had simply asked her to put her dog on a leash because he was scaring the birds in Central Park, and her calling the police and it turning out to be, pretending that he'd assaulted her. And then hours later, not even a day later, George Floyd was murdered by a serving member of the police. And the world noticed. And everybody, because we were a captive audience, everybody was suddenly talking about something that Black folks have been talking about for years, for decades. Have been, all those songs that we listened to in the 40s, 50s, 60s, the blues, the jazz, listen to those words. Marvin Gaye, they're all talking about racism. They're all talking about Black Lives Mattering. They just didn't have the hashtag. And for me personally, I was aware that stress exacerbates menopause and can bring it on. I was also aware that, hot flushes are part of menopause, and sometimes, and I wanted to know how Black people who experience menopause in particular were watching the news, knowing that people who look like their sons, their husbands, their partners, their sisters, aunts, etc., were being murdered, were being discriminated against, watching that, how they were coping. So I went quiet for a bit. Instagram became very noisy. Everybody was trying to diversify their feed, and everybody was looking for Black creators to follow. And my follower account just went through the roof, and it was weird. It was like waking up in the morning in your bedroom naked and 50 people looking at you. And it was just so intrusive. And so I retreated, not for long, but for 5 days, which is a long time for me, on Instagram. And then I recorded a video and I said, if you Google menopause and click images, what do you see? And at the time, when you clicked it, you just saw white women wearing beige with their heads in their hands. You could scroll for ages. You know this. You could scroll for ages, and that's all you saw. My point is that people saw it. People did it, and you couldn't unsee it. And they're like, where are the Asian women? Where are the women who look like me? Where are the joyful people? Where are the people who wear, red and yellow like I'm wearing today? Where are they? And so I started to talk about it. I ran a couple of surveys asking Black people based in the UK who experienced menopause. I wanted to know what they were feeling. And the overwhelming result of those surveys was that we didn't know enough, we didn't talk about it, and we wanted more information. At the time, there was one podcast called Black Girl's Guide to Surviving Menopause, and that's hosted by Omashadi Bernie Scott, who's now a good friend of mine over in America, but that was a very US-centric podcast. And she'd been going for a year and I'd been listening to her. But people were saying, we want more, we want more. So I'm looking around thinking, oh, someone else will do that. That's not me. I'm not a podcaster. And I sat on it for 4 months. I have friends who are podcasters. Nat Lou is a podcaster. Kat Molesworth, also a podcaster, amazing. And so I had them in my circle, and they were going, get a, what they call microphone. Got a microphone, it sat on the box for 4 months. And then I thought, oh, I'm going to have to do this, aren't I? So I was literally like, I don't know the first thing about podcasting. So I went to YouTube. I went to Google. I taught myself how to edit. my friend Nat said, done is better than perfect. No one's born an expert. And what did I do? I emailed 10 Black women. I thought, oh, okay, they might be menopausal. They might talk about to me. And not one of them said no. The buggers. And that's how I started. And now we're 4 seasons in. I'm planning the 5th season. I did a Black Girls Guide to Surviving Menopause on tour, and they came to the UK, so we did a collaboration there. I've started the Joy Retreat, which is for any Black person experiencing menopause in Barbados. Lots is happening. I'm planning Menopause Whilst Black live. It feels like it's taken on a life of its own.
Yeah.
My point is, it was necessary because the more voices we hear, and this is why everybody should listen to everybody, the more voices we hear, the less alone we feel. I want no one to go through what I went through 7, 8 years ago, thinking I was going mad. Somebody on the podcast, I think season 1, episode 6, Menopause Diva, she said she thought it was a white woman's disease. That's crazy.
All she had seen. Yeah, that's all she had seen.
And also, from my research, Black women are more likely to start our menopause 8.5 months earlier and up to 2 years earlier than our white counterparts.
Why do you think that is?
You know what? I don't know. And the caveat is that I think that it tends to be Black people who experience menopause in places like the US, Europe, UK, because Black people experience menopause in places like Africa and continents like Africa and places where they're brought up amongst people who look like them, let's just say, are not necessarily having the same issue. But I will also say that the research around menopause, full stop, is very new. It's very young because, of course, who wants to research women? I mean, what's the point of them? Do you know what I mean? Hormones, ick. So for it to also be nuanced around race, around Black women, around South Asian people who experience menopause, we've still got a way to go.
Yeah.
So it may be all sorts of things, but I'm going to put racism in the mix. I'm going to put racial weathering, which is knowing about racism, experiencing racism, living in a, let's call it what it is, a capitalist white supremacy society. We need to own these things before we can move through them and learn to heal from them, I think. That's a lot. That's a lot to take in.
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot. And, thank God for your podcast. And it would be great to see more and more diversity in the podcasting world in terms of how it's all represented. I mean, there is some research somewhere about trauma. People who have experienced trauma in their lives are going to experience worse menopause symptoms. And so I imagine that's all linked with this as well.
I mean, racial weathering is deemed as controversial because whilst there's research around racism having a negative effect on our health, Black folks' health outcomes, look at COVID, look at maternity deaths, look at, Alzheimer's, look at diabetes, all of those things. But people need to put money into research to join those dots up. So my argument is, I'm going to keep showing up as an older, menopausal, postmenopausal, silver-haired, brightly coloured woman, living my life, relocating, doing my thing. Because when we do those things, we empower other people to do the same thing and understand that they have their own agency, they can advocate for themselves, and they can dream bigger and do more.
Amazing. Karen, I'm really conscious of the time. I could talk to you all day. I've got so many other questions for you. We'll have to do this again. But I'm going to give you my last question, which I give all my guests, which is briefly, because this is called the Positive Perimenopause Podcast, can you give the listeners one practical, actionable tip which they can implement, put into practice today, which is going to help them have a more positive perimenopause?
Oh my gosh, that's not fair. One thing. I want to say move your body. No, I'm going to say where you're happy. That's what I'm going to say.
Yes.
Choose one thing. In fact, I'm going to give them homework.
Okay.
Choose one thing that you love. Doesn't matter what anybody else thinks about it. One thing that you love, let's say tomorrow or this morning, if you're listening to this early in the morning, and put that on. Think about why you love it. Is it because someone gave it to you? Was it a gift? Does it go on every holiday with you? Do you love the colour? Put that on and take notice of how that makes you feel throughout the day. That's where you're happy. That's what I'm going to say.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Thank you so much, Karen.
My
It's been so
pleasure.
lovely
It's
to
been
chat
fun.
to you. Thank you so much. You are a ray of sunshine, but yet with so much goodness to share and some really important messages as well. So thanks for joining me.
Thank you. It gets better, honestly. It gets better.
Yeah. Oh, I was so in the moment there that I forgot to ask Karen to share all of her details. I will, of course, put them all in the show notes, but you can find her on Instagram at @TheKarenArthur, or you can go to her website, which is www.thekarenarthur.com, or you can go and listen to her podcast, Menopause Whilst Black, on all podcast platforms. Here are today's highlights. Number 1, access nature. If you can get to a park or a green space, do it. Even a window box or plants in your home can help with your mental well-being. Number 2, choose yourself, set boundaries, choose who you share space with. Pay attention to how people make you feel after you've spent time with them. Number 3, don't keep things to yourself. Talk about it. It makes everything a little bit easier knowing that you're not alone. Number 4, the magic comes from outside your comfort zone. Number 5, if you're feeling low, ask yourself, what can I do to nourish me? Number 6, how we speak to ourselves is powerful. We have to speak to ourselves kindly because it helps us to sit up, stand tall, and to walk with our head held high. Number 7, experiment to find the thing that helps you, whether that's journaling, whether it's yoga or cold water plunging, whatever it is, and be patient. Give it time so that you can discover whether it works or not. Number 8, done is better than perfect. No one is born an expert. Number 9, everybody should listen to everybody. The more voices we hear, the less alone we feel. And number 10, where you're happy, choose one thing that you love and put that on. Think about why you love it and take notice of how it makes you feel. That is all for this week. Thank you so much for listening. I really do appreciate it. I know how busy you all are. If you enjoyed this episode, why not share it with a friend? And if you want to do one small thing for me, then the thing which would mean so much would be for you to follow this podcast or subscribe to this podcast, whatever platform you listen to it. Or if you feel called to do so, leave us a review because it really does help this podcast get out there. Have a wonderful week. And remember, perimenopause can be a positive experience and it can be an opportunity for a fresh and exciting start. Take care. Lots of love. Bye.